This week on To the Contrary.
Presidential candidates respond to the deadly attack in France, and
diverse voters and the GOP convention. Then masculinity in the presidential race. And Jennifer Aniston takes on the tabloids, saying their sexist coverage harms women and girls. Welcome to the Contrary, a discussion of news and social trends from diverse perspectives. Up first, the terrorist attack in France and unrest at home impact the presidential race as it enters a new phase. As Republicans gather in Cleveland for their convention, Donald Trump supporters hope to bar any conflict by his opponents in the party or violence by demonstrators outside the hall. Trump is also hoping his vice presidential pick will unite the GOP. Unity was this week's theme for Hillary Clinton. She spoke at the old State House in Illinois, where Abraham Lincoln delivered his historic House Divided speech nearly 160 years ago. She portrayed herself as the only candidate capable of bringing the country together.
My life's work is built on the conviction that we are stronger together, not separated into factions or sides, not shouting over each other, but together.
But Trump uncharacteristically touched on unity in the week leading up to his party's convention in a video reacting to the Dallas massacre of police.
Too many headlines flash across our screens every day about the rising crime and rising death tolls in our cities. Now is the time for prayers, love, unity, and leadership.
Polls show a tight race. A New York Times CBS poll had Clinton and Trump in a dead heat. That after she was 6 points ahead the week before FBI Director James Comey accused her of gross negligence in the private server email scandal. Clinton this week finally received the endorsement of Democratic rival Bernie Sanders. So, Rena Shah, which candidate will be better at uniting the country over racial tensions and or protecting the country against terrorism?
Neither. Both have showed a failure to bring people together in all these weeks and months that they've been out there stumping. And so I'm very unhopeful, let's say, for November.
You know, on temperament and experience, Clinton's way ahead. When it comes to Trump, there's only one issue: Trump.
I agree, but I will say Hillary during the debates called Republicans her enemy. She wants to be the unifying candidate. She's got to prove that she can be the candidate for both Republicans and Democrats.
I think to see who's going to be more unifying, you just have to look at your kids. My 5-year-old asked me a couple of weeks ago if Donald Trump was a bad guy. And Hillary's recent ad about what our kids are listening to just by hearing Trump speak, I think there's no doubt that it's going to be Hillary.
All right, let's talk first about the convention, which you may or may not be attending as a delegate because the Trump people are opposing you because you were bound to Marco Rubio, and they don't like that?
Donald Trump didn't win any votes in Washington, D.C. I was bound to Marco Rubio, made some anti-Trump comments, and Trump supporters saw to it that I really fought a challenge. And so I'm in the midst of that challenge. Whether I'll be there on Monday is yet to be seen. But the more importantly here, I look at the textbook definition of unity, and that's oneness, and that's not being divided, and that's respect for one another's ideas. And the reason I said that neither candidate on both sides, Donald J. Trump is my party's not presumptive nominee at this point, and he has utterly failed to bring people to the camp and say, look, this is a party for all of us. We may have differing ideas, but this is how we can move together as one. And I think Hillary has the same challenge. All these weeks and months, she hasn't been able to grab that millennial vote that went to Bernie Sanders. But so what are we stuck with? Two really divided people at the helm.
Recent polls show that she is getting most of the
and I think
Sanders
slowly. But it's not only just Trump. It's about party unity as well. I mean, the Republicans are just falling apart. And with Bernie Sanders coming out, stumping with Hillary this week, and I always said this was going to happen. After the primaries, we're all going to unite behind our candidate. But the Republicans can't even do that, despite the fact they only have one candidate.
Look, I've just come back as a member of the platform committee for the National Democratic Party, and both Saunders people, Clinton people were there strong. And we had, first of all, there was 55-45. That shows you how much they had already won and what compromise is all about. In the end, they stood their ground on some issues, but you didn't see...
Well, they got the $15 minimum wage, but they didn't get anything on trade agreement.
No, but they did get some compromise language. We didn't want to give the back of our hand to the President of the United States, who is supporting the trade agreement, and so we couldn't go the whole way with them. But you'll notice there was no drama coming out of our platform. I wonder whether they're going to pick off the Never Trump people one by one as they have picked you off.
Well, the very thing that makes the party it has put the party in such a tough position right now, put me in a very tough position, is our individualness in the party. Look, Bernie Sanders joined the collective. Democrats are known to be more collective. Republicans, whether you like it or not, we can be against each other in the very same party. And maybe that's what's dividing us. But to be frank, I can be a Rubio person and I can still say, no, I will never be for Donald Trump.
Julia,
and I'm respected.
I want to get to the upcoming convention. The polls a week before the convention were showing Clinton ahead by about 6 points. Then she had a really bad week with Comey and the FBI. Going into the Cleveland convention, they were dead even on a national scale. There's usually a convention bump of 10 points or so. Will Trump come out 10 points ahead? And will it last? Will he be able to hold on to that?
He may. I will say, yes, we do expect a bump right after the convention, but it's hard to say. There is so much that can happen between now and the end of the convention by both candidates. There can be incredible slip-ups. I mean, you know, Trump has sort of is catching up to Hillary, and some wonder is that because he's kind of been quiet this week. He hasn't had any major missteps and major scandals. Polls are a snapshot. They tell us what's going on right now, but it's very hard to predict what will happen.
Are the polls relevant
at this point? Hardly.
Right.
I mean, when you look at where Obama was last time, you understand that. So each week, what happens that week will determine the polls for that week. I don't know what is going to happen here, but this is what I expect. First of all, if they can get anybody to participate, assuming that does happen, something is wrong if you do not get a bump out of your convention, because the conventions are entirely scripted.
And what is his vice presidential pick going to do for him, especially among women voters?
Pick up a bunch of people who are anti-choice. And I mean, we were talking earlier.
I mean,
well, I mean,
get that
re-energize.
already?
Yeah, we'll re-energize that base. But you know, we were talking about this, about how Pence is actually against the Muslim ban. So it's going to be interesting how Trump kind of backpedals or pivots around that policy. But they seem to be on the same page when it comes to women's reproductive health.
Do you think he'll pick up any support with Pence?
It's hard to tell. It's too early to call at this point, because the conservative right, the religious right, is certainly for Governor Mike Pence, but they're feeling very betrayed right now, especially by the antics of the RNC having fallen right in line with Donald Trump and sort of killing the efforts of free the delegates and unbind the delegates. So it's a little too early even at this point. The convention hasn't yet begun.
I'm interested. Will he pick up women voters?
I don't know that he will, because we know those women who are very hardline in the party are part of that religious right, the evangelicals, but we still don't know. They may again feel like, look, if Cruz isn't there, we don't want this. It doesn't matter.
We know that the vice presidential picks don't really move it either way. They don't really have a huge impact, but I do think.
But they try. I mean, yes, they try for state pickups, regional pickups.
But I think this
and
case
they try
is different.
for particular
I think
demographic
this case is different. Trump has had a real problem with true conservatives. He's had a problem with establishment, and he's had a problem with evangelicals. And Pence is the golden boy of all three of those demographics. So I think this was an effort.
What about money?
Trump,
what about donor support?
I don't think that's as big a consideration. Look, we know usually presidential picks are based on they need a swing state or they need a certain demographic of voters. And in this case, it was the base, it was the establishment. That is really critical to Trump. That is what Pence brings.
The money's been lacking. That's actually a fair point. The RNC has lost a lot of pledges because of the remarks that Trump has made in so many weeks. So
we go into the convention, you said $6 million behind.
There's a serious
They need
shortage.
$6 more million to pay for the convention?
Exactly.
That's really unusual, isn't it?
And Governor Pence may bring that to the table. You never know, may re-energize that. Look, Speaker Paul Ryan says he's a friend of mine. Love him. You know, this guy is, like you said, fills those boxes, but boring, okay? Like, who's he really going to pick up?
Pence also brings both executive and he knows Congress.
He does. He's a governor.
He knows
He's a
Congress
governor.
very well. He was in leadership and he was an executive, so he brings incredible experience on those two fronts.
What he brings is something on the other side of a candidate who's had 3 wives.
Yeah.
Bunch of bimbos, everything that all of the conservative right is against. They need to reinforce the enthusiasm of that part of their party, which is a huge.
I want to get to
faction of their party.
terrorism in a second and how that plays in this race. But before then, I have to be a little bit cynical and say, now that Trump's got every kid of his speaking during the convention, and nobody's talking about this, but somebody did ask him if he won the presidency, might he walk away from it? And he said, I'll get to that if I get there. So is this really back to showing off the Trump family so they can all improve the brand? I mean, sometimes you get the impression that he's really all about the brand and not about politics.
I wonder where we could get that impression that Trump is all about himself. I wouldn't be surprised. He backtracks on everything. And, you know, he hasn't spent any money on TV ads the way that Clinton is. His war chest is much smaller. And he relies on a lot of this kind of free publicity.
Julie.
Yeah, I think he is about the brand, absolutely, and he's unpredictable. Everything he says is just baffling, both to the press and to voters. You can't track this guy. So I do think that he's always got business, and he's always got his own interest, and he's always got his family first.
And the Trump kids picked Governor Pence. The Trump kids picked Governor Pence.
And
That's
they got,
to
Kerry Lodowski or whatever his name is out
Corey,
of the picture.
the campaign manager.
They have been lobbying their dad.
Yeah.
All right, but okay, terrorism, the attack in France, how's that going to affect the race, if at all?
Oh, it will affect. Again, these are short-term issues. One thing the Democrats ought to hope for is you don't have one of these attacks just before the election, because that could swing you a few points one way or the other. So although terrorism is not in control of any candidate of either party, Trump benefits from being a Republican. Here is where talking tough matters.
Yeah.
She has the credentials, and here where we're lucky. Normally we would not have a candidate with credentials like being Secretary of State during a time of terrorism, having something other than the traditional Democratic view on war and peace. So that will help us, and when she gets to talking about it, I think people will listen.
I mean, Hillary was in the Situation Room when they were doing that raid on bin Laden. She doesn't just have, random expertise. So I think she should talk about that while Trump is talking.
But Benghazi overshadows that.
Huge. You can say that she was in the Situation Room, but many people blame her for the current situation that we're in and the increase in terrorist acts. So I think that her experience at the State Department does her no good. I don't think it helps her. I think to the average voter, people see her as a failure as a Secretary of State, and she will continue to fail as president.
Well, I think that those people really need to go back and check their history and find out how we got to destabilizing the Middle East. It wasn't because of Hillary Clinton.
If we're going to blame George W. Bush, you at least should say she contributed to the worsening of the situation. They did not improve the situation.
I don't think that you should have to say that.
The average voter doesn't pick up on
Even
that.
Trump blamed George W. Bush, so let's make that point. With the possibility of Hillary Clinton becoming our first female president, much has been made about the role of femininity in how Americans view candidates. But what about the role of masculinity? Analysts say her opponent, Donald Trump, has made his toughness and manliness a central part of his appeal.
In this campaign and every other campaign in the modern era, it's really been about masculinity. It's been about manhood. The president is the head of the first family. He's the, again, commander-in-chief. He's the literal representative of the country on the international stage. And for a country that sees itself in the way the United States sees it, going back to George Washington, every president has been this sort of in a certain sense, the archetypal man who is the embodiment of the country. And for a woman to ascend to that space and to occupy that cultural terrain means that she's going to disrupt the entire symbolic architecture of a certain key part of men's dominance. And that's one of the reasons why it's such an uphill fight for women.
The electorate has been split in a similar fashion. Clinton leads Trump by a massive margin among women, according to a recent Pew poll. Trump led among men. it could be the largest gender gap ever recorded.
Donald Trump is such, his misogyny is so explicit that you can't, it's not just his the policy positions like opposing women's right to reproductive freedom and things like that. It's not just his policy positions, it's his persona and his actual statements and the aggressive way that he's dismissed women and reduced women to sexual objects. I think women, sentient women can see that the man is clearly has deep misogyny, as well as, his other, narcissistic personality traits. But so, it doesn't surprise me that women would be put off by that on a personal level. That's even irrespective of his political belief system.
So, Congresswoman Norton, I mean, look at Britain, for example, second conservative female party leader that has been elected there. And Hillary Clinton is, as you mentioned earlier, I mean, she's to the right of a lot of Democrats. That's what her problem was with Bernie Sanders supporters. Is she tough enough to overcome femininity as an issue?
Yeah, a word of caution. This is the most machismo candidate in memory, and this is the most machismo country ever. This is the country that was settled by the notion of manhood and guns, and all of that is still in our DNA. This is not Great Britain, where guns are virtually outlawed. This is not the German Republic, both of which have female prime ministers. We have not got to assume, as far as we have come as feminists, that men are really ready to raise their hands and say, I want a woman to be president of the United States. She is going to have to work very hard for it.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I agree with you wholeheartedly on that one. That was, I mean, it's tremendous, right? We look at Great Britain, we see what's happened there, but I want to shed some light on what happened there just recently with Andrea Lidstrom, who dropped out of the race, and Theresa May, who is now prime minister. She doesn't have children. Andrea Lidstrom came out saying, look, she doesn't have children. I'd be better because I have children. I have a vested future here. I have more at stake. And it's like, why are we coming down on women for having kids and not having kids? But maybe there's something behind that. Maybe not having kids says, no, I've got more time for this job. I'm going to be a leader because I'm going to just put everything into this.
Which is sort of the closest compromise you can make.
Sure, no, but not having kids makes people think that you're all freed up and you've got the time, just like a man, to throw your everything into it, right? That's a little macho too. There are women out there who don't have children and are seen to be very, independent, fierce, strong-minded. Why is that always the case? Why are we always judging women like that? And that's what I think we've turned politics on its head in terms of the global stage as well, because we ask these questions and there's no good answer.
But what would Hillary have to do to fit into this outdated concept of femininity? Bake cookies on the side? She could never win. I think we need to stop.
That's not, baking cookies is not exactly what you need to do to win president.
No, but when people
ask
her about her femininity,
first lady,
yeah, but
where
when
that
people
issue
question
came up
about her femininity, I mean, what do they expect? They want an apron but Madam President as well? I think we need to stop trying to fit her into this box. The times are changing, and she's going to be changing the narrative.
I don't think that the American voter is as concerned about the fact that she is a woman. I think what the American voter wants is leadership. And I think her email scandal has really been a hit to her. I think it makes her look feeble and weak and like she didn't know what was going on. That's the problem here. It's not that she's a woman and that she's feminine and that she's, doesn't sort of match Trump's machismo. I think really it's a leadership question. And like it or not, I think people like that Trump has as
I think it's a combo.
Does the fact that she has these weaknesses, this baggage as a candidate, does that kind of make it impossible to tease it out from whether if she were a woman who didn't have such baggage but were still a Democrat, would be able to get elected president?
I don't want to dismiss the fact that she has some added burden, being a woman, being the first woman. She is a trailblazer trying to get to the highest office. I don't want to dismiss that, but I think it's less of an issue than maybe we think it is.
And I'm just curious, why don't conservative women such as yourself give her more credit in the sense that she is to the right of many Democrats? She is more hawkish. There's no doubt about it. She went for the bombing on Libya, but that doesn't matter as much as that she used her private email server, as did Colin Powell when he was Secretary of State.
Well, look, we can drag out what Comey said, which was it was incredibly irresponsible. I know people that work in the intelligence community, and people in the intelligence community are horrified by what occurred. And so I don't think that it's, in fact, I think it would be sexist to give her a pass on this. Look, she's going for the presidency. You don't get a pass on these kinds of things. This is national security. It's very important. And I think we should take it seriously and treat her like we would treat a man in the same position.
Well, the way you would treat a man.
That's exactly what we're doing.
Well, I think there's something interesting at play here.
But wait a minute. Okay, and are you okay with that?
About treating her the same as a man? Absolutely. I don't see in this discussion the feminine part of it. I see the political part of it.
And your last word.
Conservative women are split on Hillary, I have to tell you. I mean, there are women who are coming out who are moderate Republicans saying, I will go to Hillary. I was one of those women. Of course, I won't be in November, but I have to say conservative women are split because they know that she is more right. However, there is the other half saying, anyone but the Clintons. And that's what we're up against too.
All right. Let us know what you think. Please follow me on Twitter at Bonnie Urbay or at To the Contrary. From masculinity and politics to gender and expectations. Actress Jennifer Aniston may be best known for her tabloid coverage, but in a very thoughtful and powerful statement to the public online this week, she called out gossip-ridden tabloid coverage of women as objectifying, scrutinizing, absurd, and disturbing. She says tabloids portray women in ways that make little girls think they're not beautiful if they're not tall and skinny. She said by constantly trying to find out if she is pregnant, tabloids further the notion that women aren't complete unless they're married with children. She wrote, quote, "We are complete with or without a mate, with or without a child. We get to decide for ourselves what is beautiful when it comes to our bodies. That decision is ours and ours alone. Let's make that decision for ourselves and for the young women in this world who look to us as examples." End quote. So, Anashay, since she is not by her own making, but the queen of tabloid coverage, at least for the last decade or so, will women listen to her and stop buying into this misogynist stuff?
I don't know if they'll listen to her, but they're definitely listening to her right now. And I love that she spoke up because, you know, I think the public has been waiting for Jennifer Aniston to be pregnant. She's been penalized about it. I mean, her divorce with Brad Pitt was so public. I actually think if she doesn't want to have babies with Brad Pitt, this woman is not going to be having babies. But I love how she said, "We have."
Isn't that a sexist thing to say?
It is. But on
most people would think that her current husband is pretty attractive.
He is. But I've never gotten over Brad Pitt in Legends of the Fall. But I will say also, she's right. She's right. We make our own destinies. And you know what? She's almost 50. If she doesn't want to have kids, she's not going to be having them.
I don't know where to come down on this whole thing except for to say that Brad Pitt's a lucky guy to have an ex and a current wife who are just really outspoken, prolific women who really are just putting a good voice to all these issues. I mean, Angelina coming out and making the speech, and then this piece from Jennifer Aniston, who we thought was just quiet, nice prairie gal. No, it's great. So I think we should tip our hats to women like this. I want to see more commentary like this in society.
Well, you know, here's where the messenger counts. It's not coming from, known feminists or people who preach these issues all the time. And you're right, people will listen because they're not hearing it from this messenger.
Will they listen to the point where they stop buying this stuff?
No.
Which is to say, that and it's women who propagate the tabloids.
And look, it might be a dark side of us, right? It might be a dark side of us that when we purchase these items. But look, there is an intense interest in celebrities. They have everything. They have staffs. They have homes. They go on vacations. And there might be a dark side of us that looks and says, oh, look, they have cellulite, or oh, look, they're getting divorced. Oh, they're not happy. And so there is a market for this. There is a demand. And I'm not defending the tabloids. They're vile. They say terrible things. But they're simply fulfilling that demand.
But suddenly the attention was taken off the beautiful beautiful in the words, right? Like, and we look at Angelina and we look at Jennifer, we're like, they're beauty, you know, they're so coiffed and beautiful. but the thing is, the words resonated to me. I don't
the
think
fact
Jennifer
that she
Aniston's
was tall,
pretty.
skinny, and blonde, which is what everybody's supposed to be, including your child, who obviously is not going to be blonde naturally. Anyway, but
I think she's okay. I mean, I hate to say that. I look at her and I'm like, she's all right. I like Angelina more, but beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right?
But that's my point. My question is, will heavy-set little girls like I was listen to her and not want to be, not think that tall, skinny, and blonde is the way to go anymore?
You know, I hope so. What was different about what Aniston did this time is she wrote an op-ed in Huffington Post with Ariana Huffington. It wasn't just a statement she made to her publicist.
Because condemn the tabloids as I do, they share that with the mainstream press. I mean, these are the same tall, skinny, white, blonde girls are featured in the regular press.
It's also not just women who are buying this stuff. Celebrities provide a lot of this information to these tabloids. We've heard cases of celebrities calling up paparazzi and saying, I will be here at this place. They are the
we heard about Donald Trump doing it.
Of course.
Pretending when he wasn't a celebrity, though, trying to become one.
There is a symbiotic relationship between paparazzis and the tabloids and the stars.
All right, that's it for this edition. Please follow me on Twitter and visit our website, pbs.org/tothecontrary. And whether you agree or think to the contrary, see you next week.